Thank you, Sam. Sam mentioned that having a Mormon background can help you to prepare to be an effective advocate and help others step outside their comfort zones a little bit. I feel like that's had a role for me as well, my Mormon background, in helping me be an activist as well. I'm going to show a couple visual aids here. I'll kind of talk through them because I know everybody can't see it. This is the cover of February's Q Salt Lake. It's the LGBT news magazine, entertainment magazine there in Salt Lake. And that's me with my teeth whitened. They're not actually that white. I was very appreciative of that. And also, this is my book referencing the biography, Homosexuality, a Straight BYU Student's Perspective. I want to tell a little bit about my story, well, actually a fair amount, and I'm hoping that my story will be useful and effective of conveying some hope about the future and about how my generation, the straight active LDS members, are going to be a little bit different than previous ones. I was discussing with Fred, he had a panel earlier about how generations have a little bit of a different response. And I'm going to talk a little bit, since I'm a millennial, about how that response is a little different from the perspective of a straight ally. I remember when I was first called an ally, it was about 8 months ago, and I remember thinking, I didn't sign up for anything, you know, where's the alliance agreement? But I can kind of see what they meant now. I've gained a lot of understanding over the last couple of years. The reason I'm kind of hunching is so I can hit the microphone here, sorry. I guess I'm a little too tall. But about 2 years ago, to show you how much I was just a very stereotypical, the acronym is TBM, True Believing Mormon, but homosexual issues just weren't on my radar at all. I mean, nobody in my family is gay. I'm straight. I wasn't even aware of any friends that I had that were gay or lesbian just 2 years ago. In fact, I was on the phone lines calling for the campaign of Protect Marriage Maine to oppose same-sex marriage in Maine when they were overcoming that legislative bill that had been passed there in Maine. And we won like 53% to 47, me and my group. I'm sure it was all my effective phone advertising, no doubt. But I've come 180 degrees since then in a big way, and so I want to talk about how I got there. First thing I'd like to talk about is ask for a raise of hands. How many of you are familiar with the name Bill Bradshaw? Okay, a lot of you. He's a professor recently retired from BYU, and he was my cell biology teacher. I'm a biologist, my background there, and he gave a speech outside of class on the science of sexual orientation in 2006. And I heard it, and it totally countered all my presumptions about homosexuality. I mean, I didn't have a lot. Not something I thought about. I just wasn't aware that homosexual orientation existed. I don't know. If I had thought about it, I would have said that straight people doing the wrong things, I guess, but I just didn't really know. I remember one time on my mission, I think it was 2003, and I was in this neighborhood. We were driving with the member to visit somebody we were teaching, and there was a rainbow flag on one of the houses, and they talked about the lesbian that lived there. It was like this wicked person in the neighborhood, and that was like the extent of my perceptions. So when Bill gave this speech, I was kind of taken aback by it, like, really? Because, I mean, he talked about you may be familiar with the 2D to 4D digit ratio, where men and women have a different ratio of their second to fourth digit of their fingers. But gay men are gender shifted towards the female straight norm, and lesbian women are gender shifted towards the straight male norm on that ratio. And there's twin studies and a lot of other stuff. So I was kind of curious at the time, but I didn't do anything about it. And then in 2009, I became a teacher's assistant for bioethics, which is an awesome class at BYU. Worked for Dr. Stephen Peck. And he invited Bill Bradshaw to come and give his Science of Sexual Orientation address to the class. And being a millennial, I had recently started my own blog, which has been a great experience and a great outlet for me. But I had a post about homosexuality. And I started to do a little research. When Bill gave his presentation, I grabbed him afterwards. I'm like, Bill, can I have this? Because I talked to him before about some other stuff. I went through this evolution thing when I was taking the biology, because I'd always been opposed. In high school, I gave this big stump speech to my earth science teacher opposing this terrible, blasphemous idea of organic evolution, which I now embrace. So I talked to Bill before. Thank you. I realized that there's a lot of positions I've taken in the past that I'm not so proud of now, but I hope to keep on improving as I go forward. But I asked Bill, I said, do you have a paper on this? Because I want to be able to talk about and research some of what you presented. And he had this 60-pager. And so I persuaded him to let me share it with people. And I've had a lot of people ask me for that paper, but that was kind of the start of my research. So I did a blog post. I learned a lot more about the science of sexual orientation. And then I started to see some of the stories of gay Mormons. And that's really what got me hooked. I read A Peculiar People. It was a 1991 book. Some of you may be familiar with. I read Gay, Straight, and the Reason Why by Simon LeVay. It's a 2011 book. That's some of the latest on the science of sexual orientation. I read No More Goodbyes by Carolyn Pearson. And it just captured my heart. It was just these compelling stories of the difficulties that a lot of gay Mormons had experienced. And understanding what I did at that point about the science of sexual orientation, it just seemed completely crazy. Like, this is not necessary, these experiences that people are having. And I kind of came to the realization that it's not so much being gay that a lot of times is the burden for gay Mormons. It's the response to themselves and from their faith communities and their families that cause a lot of those problems. And that's very fixable. And so I became kind of hooked about how morally compelling this issue was. So that's kind of what got started. The reason it came, my blog post eventually kind of expanded and turned into this book, which is got about half of it's about same-sex marriage, social and legal issues. I just took the bar in July. So I was able to apply some of my burgeoning legal analysis to stuff, but also a lot of the science about what causes homosexuality or sexual orientation really, and how changeable it is and things like that. But I'm guessing some of this is going to be new for some of you, but because I just graduated from BYU in April, there's a group there called Understanding Same-Gender Attraction, USGA. How many of you heard of that, USGA? Just a small amount of you? So it's sort of the equivalent of a Gay Straight Alliance-ish. And it's been kind of hard to get permission to hold it, and it's not officially sponsored, which I, of course, think is not the best situation because we should be officially sponsored if other student groups are, but at least we're allowed to meet. They agreed not to shut us down, even though they wouldn't sponsor us. So we're able to set up camp on campus once a week. We brought together straight and gay and lesbian people and LGBTQ on campus to talk about news, about speakers, about what church leaders had to say about homosexuality, about some of the science. We had one time where Bill Bradshaw was able to give his speech on BYU campus, had a lot of big attendance there. And so we've been meeting consistently over the last year. And so I thought it would be useful since I've done all this. I'm kind of a binge learner. I don't know if any of you guys are too. Sometimes I don't know when to stop, So I just kept on researching, and since I put it all together, I thought perhaps that would be useful to the other students that were in USGA. So I thought about making a booklet, but then I just decided to go all out and make the book. And it was an interesting thing. Joseph Smith once described, because people feel the Spirit in different ways, but he talked about having a flood of ideas and intelligence flowing into your mind. And for me, sometimes that's the way I feel the Spirit. And as I began to prepare this booklet, I began to receive that sort of flood of intelligence and ideas of what to write and how to write it. I mean, my book's got 7 chapters, 600 plus footnotes, definitely the biggest project that I've ever done from a writing standpoint. And the first draft, if you can believe it, because I was doing 2 grad programs, right, the MPA and also the law degree, and had a girlfriend. I was doing jail outreach and stuff at the time, very busy. But the first draft of the book came out in 3 weeks. I wrote the entire 120 plus pages in 3 weeks. It was one of the most amazing periods of my life. Sometimes I would go to bed and the ideas of what to write and how to write it would be so much in my mind that I would just have to get out of bed and start writing more in the book. And it was just incredible how it came together. It was a big testimony to me. My parents have kind of been mixed on their response. I appreciate my father spoke to me and gave me some high praise about what had written. He said he couldn't believe that his own child had written something like that. Some of the other feedback wasn't so positive, but kind of the question is, why do you care so much? And a few of you here at this conference have asked me that as well. What's the bee in your bonnet? And I guess we don't always know why, but I've never felt so strongly about an issue, about a group of people. I just really felt I could identify with the stories of so many of you. And I'm really grateful, I mentioned this in the panel earlier today, for those of you that have shared your stories. It is in books and in blogs that I was able to find out, kind of piece the pieces together of what your story is like so that I could understand a little bit better. And that's been huge for me, so I appreciate that. So I started to put together the book, and that's when the heat started to pile on. I have a brother, older brother, and in his last year at BYU, he decided, for lack of a better term, to convert to atheism. And he didn't stay in the closet about it, which is a problem at BYU. Because you can come Catholic and leave Catholic. You can come Protestant and leave Mormon. But you can't come Mormon and leave non-Mormon. It doesn't work. A lot of people aren't aware of that. It's another issue I advocated for fiercely in the last year, is better increased religious freedom at BYU. But he wasn't able to graduate. That's the bottom line, because he couldn't get his ecclesiastical endorsement. And there was a line in the honor code that says, advocating that homosexual conduct, the morality of homosexual conduct, is a breach of the honor code. And so I knew that I was flirting with that line, and I was very concerned. I did a joint degree program, so I was in the fourth of 4 years, and I looked into transferring options in the event that I did get disciplined by the honor code such that I couldn't graduate, which either the honor code office could do, or if I was disciplined by my bishop, either route would keep me from graduating. And I looked into transferring credits, and it was not a happy picture. I did about 50 of the 60 credits in the MPA program. The university I looked at would only accept 6 of them. There's a law school requirement that you have to do 2 years at the law school you graduate from, which meant that I would lose about 1.5 years of my law school credits, dearly earned. So I wasn't looking forward to that. So I was very nervous. And about this time, I had made a decision early on to be very transparent about what I was doing to my parents, to my bishop, to everyone. And my bishop called me in a couple times. He was concerned about things, discussed the church court and things, but nothing ever happened there. Although he did end up giving me some suggestions for the first chapter, which I appreciated. There was a stake president who was in the MPA program that pulled me aside and kind of gave me a lecture about where I was going, what I was doing. There was a couple BYU deans that pulled me aside to warn me that any action taken by the honor code would result in my not being able to graduate. So I was nervous. So this is about 11 months ago, about October of last year. But I decided to keep on going. And one of the first, there was an interview by, some of you may know, Eric Ethington, who runs Pride in Utah, there in Salt Lake. And he interviewed me. I remember almost shaking. Like, it was just a radio interview, just like a podcast, you know. I'm like, this doesn't mean like I'm a member of Pride in Utah, does it? Because I'm like, thinking people are going to find out, they're going to kick me out, you know. I was really scared. But I had that interview, and not much happened. And then did an interview with Q Talk Arizona. It was another podcast, and that was also a positive experience. And then a reporter contacted me from Q Salt Lake. They'd heard about my book and wanted to interview me about it. And so I was really nervous there because Q Salt Lake comes out right across from Temple Square, and I was kind of worried about what that would look like. And BYU tends to care when their name's on things. So I was concerned. I spoke with Carolyn Pearson, talked to Jim DeBackus and some others that helped give me some comfort and advice, helped me to stop shaking a little bit and to be able to move forward. So I did. And it was about this time I applied for a prestigious program called the Presidential Management Fellow Program. And it's for people kind of in my field, MPA, JD type of things. It's sort of a shoe-in to federal service. And I've been looking forward to this program for a couple of years, really been working towards it. I did an internship with the Government Accountability Office and really wanted to work in a federal agency. So it was really a great program. But you have to get nominated by your department. And so I asked the MPA program to nominate me. And partly as a result of the fact that I'd shared some early drafts of my book, they decided not to nominate me, which really upset me. Still mad about that, actually. But it gave me a little bit of a taste sometimes of the price that can be paid for advocacy and for activism. And it really challenged me personally with my faith. Of course, there's the aspect of coming to some conclusions about the morality of same-sex relationships that oppose that of the institutional church that were challenging for me. I'm having kind of a true believing background. That was definitely a challenge. Running up to a possible impact on my future career was a challenge. Wrestling with the responses of my friends and family was also a challenge. But I felt Mormons, and this is where it kind of ties into what Sam said about being Mormon, that background that can help prepare you to be an effective activist, to be able to do something that's uncomfortable for you at first. Mormons seek for truth. It's one of the grand fundamental principles of Mormonism. There's a great article by that title by Don Bradley. And I was seeking for truth. At first, it was the truth about the causation of sexual orientation. It was a scientific question. It was an intellectual, an academic, a curiosity piece of seeking for truth. But that led me to seeking a moral truth. And that's about the stance of members of the society and their opinions and views towards homosexuality, because those opinions, those views, those perspectives have consequences. And so I gained some truth along that front as well. I do want to hopefully share some pieces of hope about my generation. I've been pushing to change the honor code. I don't know if I've had any success, but this year they did change and took out the line that says that it's a breach of the honor code to advocate for the morality of homosexual relationships, which I felt, that was in January, right about the time my book came out, and I felt that was a huge gain. In fact, out of the changes of the honor code in the last number of years, a majority of those changes have been in regards to homosexual conduct, homosexual orientation, and homosexual advocacy. And I feel those are very positive. And luckily, the January honor code change, it says at the bottom here, BYU changed honor code policy. There's an article by that in the same edition, which I thought was perfect timing. Like, bacon saved, yes. Very happy about that. By the way, I only have a few copies of my book. If you look on page 12 of your program, I do have my book available if you're interested in it on my blog. So I got the address there for you. I put it on YouTube as well to kind of talk through the points of the book and have it at a PDF there. So I made that available for you. But I had an opportunity just last month, as was mentioned, to present at the Sunstone Symposium in Ogden, Utah. And when I first came out with the book, I was very explicit in the first part of the chapter about same-sex marriage, that I wasn't taking a position on the morality of homosexual conduct. It was sort of a direct response to the honor code piece, trying to save my own bacon since it was still the honor code, with the fresh memory of my brother's inability to graduate on my mind. But as I went through that process of writing the book, and of course, as you might imagine, I gained a lot of gay friends during this time, and met a lot of gay couples, which was all new space to me. I mean, again, it was 2 years ago I was calling in Protect Marriage Maine, so I'm sort of new to the scene, and it's been a wonderful experience for me to meet a lot of gay and lesbian couples and make a lot of friends of sexual orientation different from mine, and got a number of friends that are here as well. I've enjoyed meeting you, but I had my views changed during that time, as you might imagine. My policy is to try to be open to persuasive arguments, and including moral and religious ones. And again, that's been a challenge for me. But because of the openness and because of writing the book and engaging in these discussions and debates, I eventually came to the point where I could say, yeah, I really affirm same-sex marriage. I think it's the best thing societally and legally. And I really feel that it's one of the most morally important issues of my LDS generation, of millennials. The previous generation, they had a couple of their own compelling moral issues. I feel this one is the one for mine. And so I'm grateful to be able to make some important contributions to it. So in Sunstone last month, I had a presentation I kind of adapted from my chapter on same-sex marriage. And I tried to look into LDS theology and into the policies of the church. Luckily, they had the recent 2010 Church Handbook of Instruction, so I was able to draw on that resource and make some compelling arguments, or at least I thought, about why same-sex marriage can fit within Mormonism. And it was a big crowd there, and I felt blessed to be able to present that in a clear and articulate way. And I discovered that with PowerPoint, which is how I delivered my presentation, about 90-plus slides, you can narrate on PowerPoint, and then you can just post it to YouTube. It's an amazing thing, you know. the tech we have. And I've been loving being able to kind of put a presence out there, and that's helped me to learn a lot more about Affirmation as well. I've had some email contact with a few of the members and been able to learn more about the organization, both from Bill, who came last year, as well as a lot online through the news articles and videos and such. But I was able to put that narrated PowerPoint online as well, and be able to have some more discussion, dialogue with friends of mine and with others, just of course in the internet community, about some of the points that were made there. So those are just a few stories. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention another little small drama, I guess, but I distributed my book to a bunch of libraries and bookstores. I think it's still a couple copies at Sam Weller's in Salt Lake and Benchmark Books, but it was in BYU's bookstore for a little while. I was very happy about that. I remember when I pitched it to the lady, I figured I got nothing to lose. I might as well try. So I'm like, I wrote this book. You want to sell it? And I'm like, I'm warning you, it's controversial. And she's like, oh, we have controversial stuff here all the time. So they put it on the shelf. A little while later, it was sold out. I tried to sell them some more, but for some reason they didn't want any more. I'm not sure what was behind that. But I was grateful for that opportunity as well. I was at the Gay Pride Parade in Salt Lake City this summer, and I was really impressed at the amount of community support. I was told by the people that were in the parade that they were blown away as well by how long it was and how many people were there, not only in attendance to watch, but they were actually involved in the parade. And it was really encouraging for me to see how much community support there was in the Salt Lake area for LGBTQ folks. And I was able to help out the PFLAG booth there at the Gay Pride Parade, and had great involvement there. They actually opened, a little cheer here they opened a chapter in Utah County for PFLAG. I was really happy about that, yeah. I was the first speaker a couple weeks ago. I talked about the science of sexual orientation. I remember driving up, I've been in Provo the last 7 straight years, went to Rock Canyon a lot of times, those of you that know Provo, know Rock Canyon, and I saw the sign there, someone you know and love is gay. They had their PFLAG sign there. I was just like, this is so encouraging to see this right here in my lovely Utah County. Anyway, just to conclude, it's been my privilege to be involved in this space. I'm glad that I felt the call to speak and get involved. It's been my privilege to get to know a lot of you here at this conference over the last year, to make a lot of gay friends, and to learn, to have that Mormon background of seeking truth, in my case, that led me from understanding the science to understanding something much more profound. And it's my privilege to be with you. Thanks.